This is my 1999 Porsche 911, which if you saw my previous series of videos, you'll know that I was a total idiot and blew the original engine with 248,000 miles after it lost oil pressure during a track day. While most people would have sent the car to a place like this to have it stripped for parts, my poor decision making continued when I decided to spend $17,000 swapping in an LS2 from a Chevy Corvette. If you want an outline of the process to make this swap happen, check out my previous videos on the 911. Today I'm going to give you an in-depth tour of this Freakosaurus, go over its numerous quirks and features, as well as give my driving impressions. Then I will give my Porsche a Doug score. Well, maybe not the last part. Last time I tried that, Doug threatened to run me over with his Defender. And for more about what it's like to own a car that is making Ferdinand Porsche spin in his grave, click that link below and read my column on autotrader.com/oversteer. First, let's talk about the engine itself, which is all aluminum and came from a 2006 Chevrolet Corvette. Obviously, it is a very tight fit. As you can see, these thin Corvette fuel rail covers had to be trimmed since they couldn't even squeeze between the engine and the body. But most people think the V8 weighs a lot more than the original flat 6, which is totally not true. A complete LS2 with all accessories weighs around 450 pounds, while the 3.4 Porsche engine is closer to 500. Even heavier is the turbo engine from the 911 of this era, which weighs in at a hefty 590 pounds. The 911 Turbo also has its heavier all-wheel drive system, making it nearly 500 pounds heavier in total than my base model example here. My car even weighs a few hundred pounds less than a Corvette that my engine came out of. With the more free-flowing exhaust and intake, along with the performance engine computer, I imagine power readings would at minimum match the 415 horsepower reported by the 911 Turbo as well. You following me here? Maybe this is just hopeful, wishful thinking. So on paper, this should mean my 911 will be faster than a 2005 Corvette or a 911 Turbo, right? Well, I don't know yet, but it feels really, really fast. One drawback I noticed with this swap is the center of gravity has to be higher with the V8 versus the flat 6. This engine is literally hanging from its heads and bolts to the chassis about even with the tail lamps, or the bottom of the tail lamps. And while the entirety of the flat 6 engine would sit below them. Another drawback is some of the structure of the car needed to be cut away to make room for the engine, as well as an access hatch from the cabin had to be cut in for basic maintenance without dropping the motor. Maybe some Ferrari 355 owners should give that a shot during their next major. I'm sure it would just be a couple of hours with a Sawzall. One of the strangest parts of this swap is the exhaust note, as I opted to keep the stock 911 mufflers, and at idle it sounds almost identical to the old engine. Another strange coincidence was my choice to install this ducktail rear spoiler well before the engine in my Porsche blew up and I decided to LS swap. It's almost as if I planned this all along, as now it's one of the coolest parts of my car, as you can look through the grill vents in the ducktail and see the fuel rail covers that say Corvette. Look, Mama, it says Corvette down there. This Porsche's doing it for Dale. Inside, the 911 still looks mostly stock, with the exception of the aftermarket tachometer, which all of you seem to hate with a passion. By some miracle, all of the other gauges were brought to life by utilizing the original Porsche engine computer. Since it still has its Porsche transmission, measuring speed wasn't a problem, nor was the engine or coolant temperature by adapting the Porsche sensors to fit the LS engine. My car now has two fully functional engine computers along with two separate OBD2 diagnostic ports. For any issues with the electrical system and the ABS brakes, I can still use the stock diagnostic port located underneath the dash. Pork, I think I said. I meant to say port. For engine-related codes, there's another port hidden behind my faded lobster color carpet behind the rear seat. With the Porsche computer still working, nearly all the accessories function just like they should. With the exception of the cruise control, which I could wire up an aftermarket unit, I still have everything like cold AC and my factory stereo still working. And if I ever quit driving this thing like an idiot, it feels just as civilized as it did before. Just a lot faster. A lot. I like it a lot. Oh. Keeping the original Porsche gearbox by using an adapter plate also helped keep the familiarity. The clutch feels the same as well, not heavier like you'd find in an older era of American muscle cars. I did choose to lose the power steering entirely by choice, and I don't miss it. It doesn't feel any more difficult to whip around parking lots than my manual steering Acura NSX, and certainly gives a more connected sensation like you would with an older Porsche. Though I probably shouldn't compare it to any vintage Porsche so that group of enthusiasts doesn't decide to put a price on my head for this blasphemous creation. I originally paid only $9,500 for my 911, and now I've dumped enough money into it to buy a nice C6 or 911 Turbo, but I really don't have any regrets. It's just so satisfying to have that instant low-end grunt of a V8 that no stock 911 has ever felt. Of course, there are other 911s like the GT3 that are way faster, but still deliver the power with that same frantic feeling all 911s have. The LS2 just seems much more relaxed as it growls away. And it feels kind of weird having all that V8 goodness pushing you along. It's like a rocket ship, and I'm the Rocket Man. Rocket Man. Rocket Man. Burning out his fuse out there alone. Woo! Lordy. So that's the tour of my LS Swap Porsche 911. As I said in my last video, I plan to subject this car again to the same series of tests I did before the engine blew up. Obviously it'll be better than before, but will it be better than a Corvette C6 or a 911 Turbo? I guess you'll have to subscribe to find out, which if you haven't already, a sub button should be slapping me in the face right now. Ow. And be sure to hit that like button if you think I should be on some kind of medication. And as always, thank you for watching. Wagons. No.